We want to remind everybody listening that we are not health professionals, we are not therapists, we are not counselors, but we are talking about our own experiences and things that we have been through. This particular episode is for anybody that's listening, that's been there, that has somebody that's been through it, anxiety, so on. We're going to talk about our own trials, tribulations with anxiety. I can tell you I have a long, extensive history of that, so I can go into details. But we did want to talk about how everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's experience is different. No two people that have anxiety is the same. They tend to say, and I remember back in the day when I was going through a really hard time with that anxiety and depression tend to go hand in hand. For me, instantly, I didn't feel I was a depressive person. I don't think I was depressed, at least. I think it was more anxiety, like always thinking the what if this, what if that.
Yes, so, and many times doctors, when they diagnose you, and I speak out of personal experience, they say you could be suffering from anxiety/depression. And I think it's very important to note that they are different.
Yeah.
Depression, it's more, when feelings of, I don't know if in English, melancholia.
Yeah, melancholy.
Melancholy.
Yeah.
Come when you think a lot about the past, when you're missing somebody that passed away, when you're missing your kids that left to go to college and now you have the empty nest, all those things where you're thinking, oh, I remember when they were younger. Many people can go through those feelings, but depression, it's way more than that, but that's an example. Versus anxiety, that is more like worried about the future.
Yeah, I wanna point out there that what we're gonna be targeting more is anxiety, not the depression part. I know depression is extensive. It can go into very manic depressive. There's many different things. That's not what we're talking about because I don't think Darlene or I have any experience with that side of it. So, as far as anxiety is concerned, it's basically a fight or flight. It's like, you have that, I remember like that tiger running after you, yet there's no danger. Like you're perfectly fine, but it feels like there's a tiger running after you and your heart's pacing and you feel like running and you feel like getting away from danger. And your brain is basically saying danger, 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 yet there's no danger. But in your mind.
For your husband, there's danger. When you see your wife like that, it's help them.
It is. And I don't even want to laugh about it because I mean, when we get into our actual, like talking about what's happened to you and what's happened to me, it definitely is not a funny topic. It's definitely not something I wish on anybody. But yeah, anxiety is something I think that we've been seeing creep up more and more and more. Yet the only thing that I could think that right now, off the top of my head right now, that's positive is that we're more aware of it. Like now it's not so much of hiding. I think back in the day, at least when I was going through that, again, I'm 42. I was going through that when I was about 18 years old. And first of all, I didn't know what it was. And I think if I even went to go tell somebody about it, I think they'd probably look at me and be judging me like
call you crazy.
Oh, you're crazy.
You're being overly emotional.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I think now the good thing is that we're seeing so many more people, successful people from all walks of life going through it. And I'm not talking about any regular anxiety because anxiety we have for many things. Anxiety is a normal emotion.
Road rage.
Yeah.
Listen, it's
anything,
there's so
anybody.
many things on the daily life, but when it starts affecting your life, like constantly, that's when you have to go and seek help.
Definitely. And there's so many ways. So like we'll go. I mean, we had things kind of planned to talk prior, but I think our stories and our experiences and all that could probably take a little bit. So to get basically into it, why we wanted to talk about this, I've had my experience with anxiety as I know you have. We've known each other for about a year. We've talked briefly about these things. I think you know more or less some of the things that I've gone through. I don't think you know how extensive it was though. So starting with me, I had my first, which I didn't know what it was, panic attack when I was 18 years old. And for those of you that are not familiar with panic attack or their feelings or like what it is that it causes, it's literally panic. Like think that you are in a building and somebody's going to blow up the building and you have 2 seconds to get out of it. That is panic. And I had my first panic attack. I remember being in a club in Fort Lauderdale. It was an 18 and older club. I was with a couple of friends. I remember I was drinking, oh my God, back in the day. Like, you're not supposed to drink at 18, but yes, I did have like a drink on me.
Not in Puerto Rico.
Well, in Puerto Rico, but not here,
Yeah.
in South Florida or whatever. I remember drinking like, I think it was like Cisco, I think it was called, or MD 2020, which was like some really bootlegged like liquor. But anyways, I remember having that before getting to the club. And we were having such a good time. And all of a sudden, all I remember was like all the lights from the club kind of like being in my face, everything kind of turning white. And I felt like I had to run, but I didn't know why, because there was nothing happening. I was just dancing. I was having a good time. My friends were having a good time. And I go up to a friend of mine, Elizabeth, if she's listening, she'll remember this story. And I said, I need to get out of here. I need to get out. She's like, well, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong. Like, why? Why do we need to get out? Like, why? Is somebody bothering you? No, we need to get out. And so she made everybody that was with us get in the car and leave.
Wow.
And from the time that I was in the car, I remember laying on her lap and I said, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. My heart is pacing big time. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I felt like I wanted to explode, but I really couldn't comprehend what was happening. And she's like, are you okay? Like, do we need to take you to the hospital? Are you sure you need to go to the hospital? I was like, no, don't take me to the hospital. So we go back to her friend's house.
And they probably thought that it had to do with whatever you drank, or maybe somebody spiked your drink.
Maybe. I don't know. She's like, are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital? I said, I don't want to go to the hospital. So I have recollections of certain things. And then obviously with time and looking into it and reading books and doing a lot of self-help and, throughout the years, I've learned to see like certain patterns that maybe could have caused that, or things that maybe one traumatic experience that could have happened, which I'm not going to get into detail here, that could have maybe triggered it. But again, I didn't know what it was. So I remember that happening. I remember it going away afterwards. And I was like, oof, finally, it's gone. I don't know what was wrong with me. Maybe it was something. Maybe it was the liquor that I drank. Maybe I shouldn't have drank that, disgusting thing. But yet, with time, and I can't really remember all the details, I started experiencing more of these panic attacks.
Oh, it was more than one.
Oh, yeah. It started becoming like a cycling of panic attacks. I'm talking about, I remember one particular memory that actually caused me to stop driving for one whole year. Take in mind, I'm 18 years old. I am in the prime of my life, I want to say. And I was always very, very, very independent. Anybody that knew me knew that I was very independent. I was the girl that my dad taught me how to drive because I have an older sister at 12, 13 years old. I was the girl that while my mom was cooking, I was the rebellious one that would go outside, get the keys, and take the car at 13 for a drive around the block. I'd go pick up my friend because she wouldn't, stuff like that. I was independent. And I remember my friend Denise saying, this is not you. Like, what is going on? Because when I started having the panic attacks, the one particular episode that I remember, I drove myself to Burger King, I think it was. I was going to get myself like some sort of like meal or something like that. And I was standing in line. There was a huge line. Not standing in line. I was in my car in the drive-thru. In a long line. And there was a bunch of different cars. Standing there. And I said, shoot, like, dude, this is going to take forever. Like, I wanted to get out of there. And when I realized that I couldn't go back and I couldn't go front and I couldn't go to the side, because if I went to the left, I was going to hit Burger King. If I went to the right, there was a median, so I couldn't take it. And I couldn't leave. As panic started.
You were feeling claustrophobic.
Yeah. I was feeling like I was, again, I felt that the panic, I became scared of the panic attack. But I didn't know what the word was. So fast forward, I remember these things started happening more and more. And when that starts happening, like all your emotions are out of whack, I want to say. Like you are jittery all the time. You're thinking, what if all the time? Like, what if this happens now when I go to school? What if this happens when I get in the car? What if this happens when I go on the plane? What if this happens at the girls' party that I'm going to go to tomorrow? And you're constantly waiting for it to happen. And that is anxiety. Yeah. Anxiety is thinking of what can possibly happen in the future. Mm-hmm. I got scared of the panic attack itself, which again, I didn't know what it was. And then I, with research and all that, back in the day, I there was a name for it. It's called agoraphobia. Oh. And that agoraphobia is basically like, it's like a doom. It's like a fear of, in closed spaces, a fear of not being able to leave when you need to, like stuff like that, like leave when you need to leave and so on. So I was going through this and I didn't know what it was. And
did you get any help for that at that moment? Did you tell your parents what was going on?
so I did tell my parents, and they started to see things. And when they saw that I didn't want to drive anywhere and that I was dependent on them, like codependent on them. And my mom, again, we talked about this in the last episode. My mom is, she's a worrywart. She's a helicopter mom in the sense she wants to protect us at all costs, be there, do that. And she's like, well, what can I do to help you? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you thinking about? And I was like, I don't know. I just feel this overwhelming, impending doom that I feel that something bad is going to happen at all times. And yet I could just be sitting here at church thinking something bad's going to happen, which, mind you, a lot of the kids nowadays have anxiety because of all the stuff that's happening in the world,
Kids,
adults.
As moms, let me tell you, one of the main things for me, I have nightmares. When I first put Luna for daycare, I was freaking out. I wasn't sleeping because of this, just worried of what
can happen at school.
Especially the times that we're living now. You drop off your kids at school, and unfortunately, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think we never knew it was going to happen, but now it's worse.
But now it's worse.
Yeah.
Now it's worse. And so, yeah, that's actually one of the things that gives me more anxiety, thinking about, and then I'm an older parent, so the day that I'm not here, like, who's going to take care of Luna? It's, just being worried. But so for those panic attacks, were you able to go to a doctor and seek help? How did it
So
get
I didn't. When this was starting, and the starting point of all these like little attacks that kept, not little, because they were attacks that would happen. Again, I would avoid situations because I was scared of it happening in front of somebody or, something of that. And again, mind you, I'm not a screamer. I'm not something's happened to me. I'm actually a person that
would be me.
Not me. I was a person that when I would have a panic attack, I would literally get all inside of me, in my shell. That's the term that I like to, in my shell. And I would feel like I needed to explode. Like, think of like a teapot, like on a boiling teapot that's about to pop, like that. And, I remember how I found out what this was, because back in the day, nobody really spoke about it. So I remember at nighttime, I couldn't sleep, again, anxiety. And I am sitting there. It must have been like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. And an infomercial comes out. And the lady starts saying, my name is Lucinda Bassett. And I am the author of, I wrote it down. I'm going to find it. I'll find it. I am the author of From Panic to Power. Okay. I made this whole entire course dedicated to this. And so she comes out with her story. And I'm like listening. I'm like, okay, this is intriguing, And she's like, I had anxiety, really bad anxiety. I couldn't go with my husband anywhere to travel. I couldn't be by myself anywhere because I felt that the panic was going to come along. My heart would pace. I would feel impending doom. I would feel this. And then I started doing a checklist. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, this is exactly how I feel. Is like God trying to tell me something. Is this, because I did not go to get help. I did not go to a doctor because I thought in my mind, what if I'm going crazy? What if I'm going crazy and they put me in a loony bin because something is going on and like there is no danger. I know there's no danger, but why am I feeling like this? So I didn't get help because of that. And then finally I see this infomercial and I was like, wow. So then I start researching.
And I'm not alone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not alone. Oh my God. There's other people out there. There's
a book about it. Yes.
There's a book about it. There was a program, Darlene, about it. I spent at that time $500. I'll never forget. I asked for that whole program to come. It was cassettes. Imagine how old this thing was. There was no such thing as CDs and all that. It was cassettes. And it was a huge box and it had a workbook. And it had all these little, I think I probably have it somewhere. I don't know where it is. And all these tapes and all that. And all these people coming out with their stories, phobias, people scared of things like one lady I'll never forget. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't have kids back then. Obviously I'm 18, 19. And she was like, I have this really bad fear and anxiety after seeing so much stuff in the news. This was back in the day. She's like that, like when I'm taking my kid a bath, I'm scared that I'm going to drown them. And I don't want to take them a bath because I in my mind, I'm like, what if I do something crazy and I drown them? Even though I love my child and I would never do that, I have to wait for my husband to come home and bathe the kid because I'm scared that I'll do it. Mm-hmm. But I know I would never do it. It's just like this like worry of anticipating worry of what you can do or what can happen and so on.
And it happens in so many different ways depending on the age. Yeah. When I was in college, I remember something that would make me very anxious. And it wasn't something that it wasn't even true. Check this out. after I graduated from college, for I would say the next 2 years, 2 3 times a month, I would have this nightmare that I couldn't graduate because I was missing. I had to finish one class, and it would drive me crazy, and I would wake up like, I'm not going to graduate. Meantime, I graduated 3 years ago, and that kept happening to me. And I imagine for students,
Yeah.
the exams, the being able to get that scholarship in college, being able to, make mom and dad happy as an athlete, being able to do your best so you can be seen by a scout that will, draft you to the team that you want to be in. School shootings. Is my kid going to be okay when I drop them off at school? Are they going to grow and be like good kids? Are they going to be bullied? So many things that as parents, give us so much anxiety. For men, finances and being able to make ends meet and taking care of the family. And unfortunately, a lot of men that I know have committed suicide
Because of that.
because of that.
I want to put a parenthesis
Yeah.
there, though, so that we kind of put like a point there. Anxiety exists in everybody.
Yes.
Where it comes is where Darlene had said it previously in the beginning is obviously it's many different shapes and forms of anxiety, and anxiety can be a good thing. Anxiety can be, anticipating like your graduation and you're so excited, but you're nervous at the same time. You know what I mean? That's a good type of anxiety. The anxiety we're trying to get to, and the anxiety that affects so many people's, lives that you wouldn't believe it because they look so normal and everything
Yeah.
is so fine and so on, is the anxiety that hinders them from doing stuff, everyday life stuff. And that causes them to again retract and stop living. People that didn't leave their house or don't leave their house, where it has gotten to a point where, and I think there's probably different. I'm sure a trained psychologist, because we're not.
Yeah, we're not.
Can come into the different, spectrums, the different types of anxiety. Obviously, you've got the ones that everybody has, and you've got the one that kind of affects you. Then you got the one that really hinders your life. There's so many.
Yeah, there's so many. For example, for me, these are light things.
Yeah.
When people, you don't laugh though. When people eat, you hear them like chewing. Like those sounds that they make with their they drive me crazy. And because this is one of the symptoms of anxiety. Your heart starts racing, your palms get sweaty, you feel shortness of breath, and believe it or not, those little things drive me insane.
And makes you have those?
And they make me like, what else? Being late makes me super anxious.
Oh my God, yes.
And
I
you've
know
seen
that.
it.
I know
You've
that.
seen it when we
Yes.
drive here.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God. And just balancing like our life as mothers. When I first moved back to Miami, because I was living in LA, I was doing my thing. I was going on my auditions. I had a great job with the Rand Corporation as well. And I was so happy. I had my car. But then we decided to move out here to Miami because Luna was getting older. And
Grandparents.
And for me, that's very important for her to be, growing up close to family members. In LA, it was just us. And friends. Shout out to our friends that became family. But, we wanted her to be close to the grandparents. But I went through this period where it was like sad, frustrated, anxious all the time because I said, now what do I do? And then when she started school, I was like, oh my God, what do I do now? I'm not going to auditions as much as I was going in LA because it's obviously there's more work over there. I don't know. I found myself to be lost. I was like, I need to pay bills, but I don't know what I want to do as far as career. I would go on social media and be like, oh, I'm happy for them. Wow, they're doing great. And it's the same age. We graduated at the same time, and I'm not doing shit with my life.
Would you think that's more depression, though?
It was just anxiety of I have to pay bills.
Right.
I want my daughter to see me, having a career and being happy. And I wasn't feeling happy because all the pressures, I didn't know how to balance career and then having another thing that gives me anxiety. It's having a mess in my house. So it's like, okay, I need to work so I can make money so I can pay my bills. I need to keep track of everything Luna, like school, and what is she going to do after school, and her health, and my appointments, and what am I going to do with my life? I was so lost, and I did go to see a doctor, and he's the one that said depression, anxiety, and immediately pills.
Yeah.
Pills. I have so many jars of medicine in my house, which I refuse to open. I'm actually going to trash them because I started taking that and I didn't like how I was feeling. And then I know people that do take them and it helps them in the day-to-day life, but that wasn't for me. So I had to seek other ways to loose it up.
The good thing is that, for instance, your anxiety, I'm not knocking, I'm not saying, oh, who cares, Darlene, that's not like big anxiety, please.
It's not compared to others.
It's not.
I understand.
But it's anxiety. It's an anxiety, and if you allowed it to keep snowballing and snowballing and snowballing, it could possibly, if you don't catch it on time, can possibly come into something a little bit more aggressive, right? That's what I think.
Yeah, and it affects your relationship.
Yeah.
My husband would be, hey, tone it down. And if you tell somebody that your heart is racing and
to tone it down,
and you're shaking, you tell that person tone it down, and it adds to it.
Correct.
Because it's you're calling me crazy, and it's something that happens, and it happens all the time, at different levels, but that you start like shaking. You feel that you're not doing things the right way. What if I do this and I was supposed to do this? What if I go this route? And what about if I'm not doing it correctly? It's just that as a mom, like wanting to have everything perfect. And obviously that's something we're not perfect, and we need to acknowledge that as mom. We're going to fuck it up a bunch of times, and I've come to peace with that. But yeah, it could affect your relationship for sure, because then when you're feeling like that, anything that anybody says, you're going to scream at them. You're going to react with your emotions, not with your head. And so those are things that you need to go get help before it affects your relationships, not only with your spouse, but with your children. Yeah. I
think there is a lot of, like, for instance, you talked about the medicine. I remember for me, then again, mine was a little bit more, I want to say more extensive, because again, I if you research agoraphobia, I could have probably ended up, if I did not work on myself, if I did not research, I could have ended up being one of those ladies that never leave their house. Because my friends were like, I remember my friend's now husband, then boyfriend said, Monica, my aunt went through this. She hasn't left her house in I don't know how many years. She will not drive a car. She will not do this. You need to do something. And let me tell you something. When people would tell me that back then, again, this has been many, many years. I've worked on myself. People say, how did you get out of that to get to where you are now? And I was never a believer of pills. Right? Not because I didn't think that they helped. It's because the pills made me even more scared. Because I would always think, what if I take that pill and that pill makes me feel worse and that pill makes me end up in the hospital and that pill, that's part of the anxiety. So it was like, I couldn't do anything without thinking, what if? And it was horrible. It's like, I couldn't take one step forward. I couldn't take one step back. I couldn't go to this. I couldn't do anything because of how bad the anxiety had gotten. And I remember my mom, poor my mom, if I ever saw my kids struggling like that, I'd feel horrible. I'd want to help them. But you can't, because they can only help themselves. Yeah. And she said, okay, let's go to a psychologist at this point. We already know what it is. It's been happening a lot. You stopped driving for a freaking year. So I end up going to a psychologist. Psychiatrist first. Psychiatrist is the one that actually gives you pills.
They give you the pills.
And then the psychologist for therapy, right? So psychiatrist came and she goes, I think, and I was there with my friend Raquel, because she came with me, and she's like, okay, let's go see. She's like, I honestly think, and first of all, when I saw the lady, I was like, am I thinking that this lady's a little nutty, or is it just me because I'm anxious and I'm thinking that everybody's nutty right now? But Raquel was with me and she wasn't having any of these issues. And the lady's like, I think you are bipolar. And I said, I've never been called bipolar in my life. I don't think that that's a correct diagnosis, but whatever. She's like, I'm going to give you this bottle of Xanax. And with that Xanax, she's like, I said to her, I'm not going to take it, but yes, give it to me. And you know how long I took around expired Xanaxes? Like, I had that box of whatever she gave me, the Xanax, the pill box, for years, Darlene. Years, in the sense of, like, it made me feel comfortable that if I had a panic attack, I need it. It's there.
Did you ever open open?
When I had to go on a plane. Like, I remember going on a plane, and my thought process was, what if I have a panic attack midair and I cannot get out? Because you can't get out of the plane. And let me tell you something, that's where my anxiety still hences, like to this day, about flying. Not that I won't fly, I'll fly. But there's still a little anxiety there that thinks, like when we went to Mexico, now it wasn't that long of a flight. It was like an hour and something. The thought came for a second, like, and I was like, I don't have panic attacks anymore. Not that I can't have one, but I just haven't had that in a long, long time.
Question, are you claustrophobic?
Yes, and that came, and I was never. That came when, like, for instance, I remember my mom telling me, Monica, you were never like that. Like, I remember going to Spain, and for instance, elevators. My mom told me, she's like,
you don't get in elevators,
I do.
right?
I do get
you
an
do
elevator.
now?
I do. No, I always have.
Oh, I thought you had said something when we met that, I don't do elevators.
No, I do elevators. I will get an elevator. I don't like going in elevators by myself. So I'm not super like, oh my God. I know people that walk the stairs no matter what. They don't care if I'll say, I'll go with you. Don't worry. They will not.
So, but you can't do it alone.
I don't want to do it alone. No, I still have that. That's still lingered there. And the fear is, like, I remember a friend saying, I was in the elevator and I got stuck for an hour with the groceries, and los bomberos, the fire department, had to come. And I said, oh my God, thankfully, God, that shit hasn't happened to me. Like, I have gotten stuck, but with somebody else, and for a couple of minutes. And trust me, my heart was going 1,000 miles per hour. And the thing with somebody that is dealing with, really bad anxiety in those kind of like phobias, stuff like that, is that it's just like it's just like pressure. I don't know how to explain it. It's like this thing that you get. Like, I remember the pressure would be so bad that I felt like I was going to pop because of the anxiety. I didn't know how to take it out. I started running. I started seeing how I can get that energy, because it's an excess energy. And it's an energy, like I said, like if there's a tiger running after you, but yet there's no tiger, there's no doom, there's no, there's no bad things happening. And the bulk of the time, all the what if thinking that I did, all the what if thinking, which I still do, but it's not the anxiety I'm talking about from back then. None of that happened. None of it. So what happens is, and where I feel bad for people that are still struggling with this, is that you don't live your life. You don't, because you're always thinking, what if I do this? If I get on this plane, what if the plane crashes and then I never, what if, but like literally, I think everybody has thoughts. I'm talking about the person that takes it and runs with it and says, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to go travel the world because screw it. I have anxiety, so I'm not going to do it. And I believe in the pills. I do believe it. Like, if you need it, take it. If your doctor is giving it and it makes you feel better, take
Whatever
it.
works
For me, it wasn't
you.
an option because I didn't want to become dependent on them.
Yeah.
And that was my fear. What if I become dependent? And now I become a druggie and I'm always wanting the Xanax and I'm only on Xanax. That was my fear always. And I don't know. I think it just goes differently for everybody. I think too, and I've also read, and it's a fact because I've read it on so many like health articles and all that anxiety I would say can be something genetic too. So somewhere along the line, somebody in your family, they may not have had it to the extent that you've had it, but somewhere along the line that gene exists and somebody else is anxious, but it might not be to the extent because everybody goes through it differently.
I think it's very important, if you suffer from anxiety, if you have the symptoms, just to acknowledge that it's happening to you and get help. Talk about it with somebody that you're close to, somebody that you can trust. And
don't feel ashamed.
And don't feel ashamed, and find out your family history.
Yeah.
Because maybe, it could be genetics.
It could be genetics. It could be also something where you do have a underlying health condition, because that's also happened as well. An underlying health condition, and you don't know it, and you're getting this anxiety, but yet there is something underlying that's causing it. So that could be also something. What we're talking about now is really just the mental part of it. The fact of like just anxiety disorders like the agoraphobia that I said. You've got phobias.
I have one.
You've got phobias.
I have one. Yeah, and oh my gosh. Before we left LA, I found a doctor that was going to help me through that. But then we came here and I haven't done it again. But I have a really, really bad phobia of lizards. And it could be funny. People could be listening to it.
No, but it's not funny for you.
If you know me, you know what it is, what it does to me. And I live in Florida. There's a bunch of them. I come from Puerto Rico. There's a bunch of them. But I have it. I don't know how to deal with it. But when they're close to me, I start shaking. I had an incident in Puerto Rico one time, and it freaked me out because my heart wouldn't stop beating. I started shaking. I was boiling pasta, and it was like all the way up. I was alone in the apartment. I had to go find a neighbor who came, and he was there I wouldn't let him leave until he found it, because those motherfucker lizards, they go like under on the side, and then you don't find them forever. But it was scary. And for me, I remember, this is another one. I have one of my best friends. His name is Juan. He works for U.S. Customs in Puerto Rico at the airport. And I remember calling him, and I'm like, Juan, because I live right by the airport, our apartment over there. And I'm like, Juan, there's a lizard here. And he took his lunch break because he knows how bad it is. So he comes with gun, with the whole uniform. He gets the little lizard and he leaves. But he understands how bad it is. But I'm like, this is fucked up. Like, I just had my friend leave his job. He's trying to protect, the airport in Puerto Rico to come and help me get a lizard. I don't like that I have it. My husband obviously hates that I have it. I try not to pass that on.
You didn't choose to have that.
I didn't choose. And it's something that I can't control. And that's the thing with anxiety. You can't control it. When I'm with Luna, I don't want to pass that to her. So if we're walking and I see one, and like, because I'll be like, and what I do is like, oh my God, no, my ankle. I just hurt my ankle, mamita.
You're a good actress.
Me doble el tobillo, or I'll say something like that so she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
We have a balcony, and my husband gets frustrated. He's like, you're never outside with me because of the stupid lizards. So if I do go out, it's like, they have to check and make sure that everything's okay.
I remember when I met you, that's what it was. We talked about that. Yeah, they came to, her husband and Luna and Darlene came to our house, and we have our yard, and there's always lizards. And I was like, let's go outside. And she couldn't. And Fabian said, she has a very, very bad phobia of this. And again, somebody might listen to this that's never had a phobia, that doesn't understand really the issues with anxiety, and say, oh my God, that is ridiculous that this girl doesn't like lizards. I can vouch, and I can tell you, when you said that to me, I didn't look at you and go, oh my God, she's so weird, because I've had my own battles back in the day.
And people, what they say, it's, there's lizards, they don't do anything to you.
Correct.
I'm like, I know they don't do anything to me.
Correct.
They're not going to come and attack me.
But something in your brain just doesn't it doesn't. And I know your heart was pacing 1,000 miles per hour because there was a lizard, in our yard or something like that.
I'm getting chills just by talking about
it. You see, but so there's exposure therapy. So let's now that we're talking about this, back in the day,
I don't know if I could do that one.
So
Tell me your story.
I'm going to tell you, I've gone to, back in the day, again, not now. Again, now I would say that I'm perfectly fine in this sense. You know what I mean? But back in the day when I was really, really struggling, I researched so many things. And, this lasted for many years. This wasn't just one day, I'm magically healed. No. So the pills, they tried to give me the pills, didn't do the pills. Okay. I had them with me just in case as a precautionary kind of thing. Yeah. But I did therapy. So I did go to therapy. And they do, first of all,
yay for therapy.
For somebody like me with what I was dealing with, they do what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. So they go back and they take you back in the sense of trying to identify, you should always be conscious, when you're feeling a certain way, or when you're, in my mind, or back in the day when I would literally dig myself in a hole because I'd be thinking of this and that and that and that, and I was constantly making it worse. They help me to switch a thought. So for instance, I don't know, I'd be like, oh my God, because I'm going to have this anxiety attack, and because of this, this, and this. And then you would switch that thought and be like, no, I'm not going to have, kind of training your brain, that pattern that has been created that's causing you this panic, training your brain to kind of not do that. Now, I'm not going to say that that's what helped me the most. I did that. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of yoga. All these things helped somewhat. They did. I'm not going to say that they didn't.
So a little bit of everything helped you.
I tried
everything together.
I tried a bunch of stuff, and all of these things would help me as time went by, and I kept practicing and helping myself, because at the end of the day, I think you have to help yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. I did all these different things, and one thing that really helped me, and you guys will put a link in it in our bio or whatever when we put the description, was EFT. And so EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. If you haven't heard of this, it's basically tapping. For those of you that don't know what, if you never heard of it as EFT, some people call it tapping. And it's tapping on your meridian points. Okay. And I used to follow this guy called, and if I ever feel anxious, I may even just put like a video of him again now that I'm thinking about it. His name is Brad Yates. So I'm plugging him. I have nothing to do with him, but he did help me. His videos helped me. He's on YouTube, Brad Yates, and he would
put his info too. Because
it definitely can help. It definitely can help. And now don't think this is some hocus pocus thing. I remember being super anxious one day driving with my parents far. We were going to Asheville or something like that. Can't remember. And I was feeling a little anxious from going so far away from my house because at this point, remember, with the anxiety that I was having, I was feeling anxious getting away from my safe zones. And my safe zones was my house, this, that, whatever. So we're traveling and I was feeling anxious. My heart's pacing, this and that. And I would start in the car tapping. Okay. And it would be like, you start tapping here, right? If you look at the video, see it. You start tapping on your hand and on your left hand, on your hands. It starts going throughout your whole body. So you're tapping on your hands and you're like, even though I'm anxious and I'm feeling this way,
let's do it.
Okay,
let's do it. What if there's a listener right now that needs that?
I mean, I'm not an expert in the tapping. I even wanted to get certified at one point because I said, man, for me, it helped me. I don't know if it's something psychological, if somebody's going to say it's like a sugar pill. But for me, I was reading the comments on this guy's videos. He's not the only one that does it, by the way. There's a bunch. But I liked him and I liked what he had to bring to, the table and all that. So I would see all the comments on the videos and a lot of people suffering from anxiety and panic. People on the spot saying, I'm at work right now and I was about to have a panic attack and I'm sitting here in the bathroom and I just did your video, Brad. Thank you so much. You don't know how much this helped me.
Oh my God.
And I was like, man, it's not me then. So somebody else it's helping. It's not that I'm thinking this is a sugar pill,
Okay.
So it was tapping. So basically I'm going to do a very small little demonstration.
In case you're listening to us and you need it right now, take a seat. Do we sit down? Or
yes, you could be sitting. Up? You could be whatever. And so you're sitting there and I'm actually going to look at the camera for this one. And so let's just say you have, again, it's just the anxiety of, let's say, traveling, getting on a plane, okay? Because there's a lot of people that have phobias about getting on a plane. So you'd get on the plane, and let's say even before, maybe you don't want to have people looking at you while you're doing this, You're like, okay, even though I know that I'm anxious because of getting on a plane today, I love and honor myself. And then you keep doing it. Even though I'm getting on a plane today and I'm anxious, I love and honor myself. And then literally you start tapping here, you start going here. Then the other one was like, again, I haven't done this in a long time, guys. So please do not quote me on the exact way to do it.
I'm going to practice this tonight. I'm going to tell my husband, let's go to the balcony. Forget about the lizards.
Look at the video. And then there's one that's like on your temples. And then the other one is like on, I think it was your collarbone. And it's just tapping. And you keep doing that.
I like the one on the temples.
You have the temples. But you have to do the whole like meridian points. It's what it's called. And through that, you start to feel your emotions kind of like subside. And this helped me so much. I think this was like the last of everything that I had tried. And I think everything else helped as well. Yeah. Yoga, meditation, all the other stuff I talked about. But this was the tipping point for me. And maybe it's because I had already been practicing for so long to try to get out of what I was in, and this was kind of like, I found something that helped me. So if you are somebody that goes through really, really bad anxiety, you have an anxiety problem, anxiety disorder, you have social anxiety, you have agoraphobia, you have phobias, try this. I would say try it. I don't knock it. I remember my dad saying to me one day in the car as we were driving to Asheville, he goes, what are you doing? In Spanish, he goes, te ves como una loca haciendo eso. And I'm like, oh, crap, you're going to reiterate the fact that I'm going crazy. And I was like, dude, but I mean, he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm tapping. And he's like, oh, okay, but it helped me. It really did. And a lot of the comments that I saw, it did the same for them. So if you guys can research it, look at it, EFT, tapping. I think it's something that it's worth a shot, especially if you're going through some really bad anxiety.
Yeah, I think it's important to see there's so many things out there. I believe in therapy a lot.
Oh, definitely.
It helps you because sometimes you have things inside of you that you want to talk about it and you don't want to, not everybody likes to journal. No. And then it's somebody that's objective. It's not a relative. It's not a friend. And you can go to the therapist and talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if they feel that you need to be medicated, it's not the psychologist, it's the psychiatrist. And then again, pills work for some. For me, it didn't. I like to be in control of what I'm doing, not feeding. I would feel
Hazy.
like I would feel like, oh, kind of like in a buzz, but that would not go away. And it's no.
And feeling like that all day. I know.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
that feeling. I mean, I want to put it out there. I want to tell the people that are listening that have been through some of the anxiety, and if you've ever had or you're going through an anxiety disorder, get help. Talk to somebody. I think I should have done that from the beginning, but I was too scared to do it. Research, even though sometimes the research causes more anxiety, because I know when I would read about it, I was like, oh my God, I have anxiety. And I was anxious about being anxious, but still, I think that if you put the work in, I'm not saying I'm not a health professional, but work on yourself. If you got to take pills, take the pills, but at the same time, don't just rely on the pills and say, oh, the pill will just do it for me. I'm going to, just take it and I'll be a zombie for 2 days. Like take it. But try to work on yourself, whether that's exercise, whether that is the EFT, whether that is talking to somebody else.
Yeah, and surrounding yourself with positive people, with good friends that will recognize when you need to be, lifted up. And yeah, I think that
and don't feel
very
ashamed.
Important. Don't feel ashamed because you're not alone. And a therapist, again, I think they're the people also that can lead you towards what you need to do in order to feel better. But you also know, like, think about what makes you happy. Like, think about what if makes you happy to be with your kids. If it makes you happy to be with this particular friend and have a good conversation, then call that friend. Let's go to lunch. Just think about things that make you happy. Meditation, yoga, Pilates. Exercise is so good. I feel that that's one thing when I'm not working out, which is a lot of times actually, you kind of like feel heavy, you feel down, and that causes me also anxiety, like, oh, I'm gaining weight, or my energy levels are down, or I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing at home and with work. And
I think that's more depression.
Is so good.
I think that's more depression. And saying depression thing, just in case somebody's hearing, again, we know every anxiety is not the same. So somebody else could be listening to this and saying, I have that, and that definitely doesn't work like this. I've tried this, that, but also it all depends on the scope, right?
Yeah.
Because there's people that have the anxiety and they're manic depressive. And when you have those two going on, I mean, I wish everybody that has to deal with that somehow, some way, can find a way to get out of it, And if that's with pills, and it's with pills, so be it.
And it's important, don't self-diagnose.
Yeah.
And if you go on Google and you put all this stuff, like, you don't self-diagnose. Just go straight to a mental health professional, therapist, and they're going to guide you the way you have to go. So just to summarize, some of the feelings that you can have when you're feeling anxious, that's how you can recognize it. In order to accept it, you need to recognize it. Racing heart, the sweaty hands, feeling of wanting to run away, shortness of breath, cold, clammy limbs.
Clammy limbs. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then just feeling like your life is just out of control. As parents, we're juggling so many things at the same time. Our schedule, our kids' schedule, family schedule. Now when summer's around the corner, it's like, what are we going to do with the kids? At the same time, we want to save money, like to buy a house or this and that, and just juggling like your schedule and everybody's, and the housework and your career and your own mental health. And yeah.
Can I add one more symptom in there?
Yes.
One symptom that we didn't discuss that I know, again, I'm only speaking from experience. When I used to get the really bad panic attacks, it would be kind of like I was in a dream. Like I didn't feel like I was here. Like I felt like it was a movie. Like I would be sitting here and everything just felt like when you see a video or something edited that there's people just walking by you and the person in the movie or the commercial is just sitting there.
It's not moving. Yeah.
It's not moving.
Like a time lapse.
Like a time lapse. That's how I felt. And it felt super like weird. I would feel weird. I would feel like I wasn't here. Like, am I really here or am I not here? You know what I mean? And it was that bad. That's how bad the anxiety got. And so again, the symptoms are different for everybody. Take care of yourselves, like Darlene was just saying. This is a mama's playground podcast, so we are targeting like parents and all that, but we know that these things happen to everybody,
including kids, and we need to see when that's happening. And again, it goes
and get help for your kids if you see that they're really struggling with it.
Yeah, kids that their parents are fighting constantly or are getting divorced. they, even if you don't think that they need therapy, they do, because the kids absorb everything that happens at home. So that's why you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your kid. Put your life vest on, like they say on the airplanes.
Definitely. Anyways, on that note, we're finishing mental health almost. I think we've got maybe like one more episode, right? For
1 or 2.
Yeah, for the month of May for mental health awareness. If you like this video, if you like the content, we would love for you guys to subscribe, like, share,
subscribe,
like,
comment,
share.
And if anybody's going through any mental health problem, situation, again, we're not mental health specialists, but you can hit us up on our Instagram, Mamas.playground. Let's talk. And of course, go get some help.
Definitely.
So see you later, Monica. We love
See
you
you
all.
Bye.
Bye.